Hey, good evening, Galleon. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary, back after a couple of weeks off. A couple weeks ago, I was under the weather and doing, I think, what most people who are able to are doing or should do, and that's sort of self-quarantining. So while I wasn't tested, I don't believe I had COVID. I took a few days off, and staff didn't see me, but I work from home, as they say. I was kind of a cynic about working from home. I actually found it productive in some ways, so I'm not quite as big of a wise guy about working from home as a big eye roll. So and then of course we had I think we had a special council committee of the whole a week ago. So people who get information about the city of Galleon may have seen a couple of the city council meetings, committee meetings that were what I would describe as pretty detailed discussions of the budget. And I think many things could be said about the recently passed budget. In fact, 20 minutes ago it was passed. But I think for me the most important things are that it's a complete budget, and you're going to see a lot of jurisdictions pass either temporary budgets, just enough to get them started, or they're going to make major changes after the year starts. I think we'll see 2 or 3 changes, largely because of things that happened in the last few weeks as we were trying to finish up this budget. And there's really just only so much flexibility that you can have within staff entering and re-entering changes in the budget. So there are a few things that will happen next year. Just sort of jump right into one. I think we've all experienced in life where we had applied for something, or a job, or a credit card maybe, or something else, and you didn't hear anything, and you didn't hear anything for so long you kind of forgot about it. Well, I think that describes the city of Galleon and our good fortune in the state's recently passed capital bill. Kind of interesting. Allow me to digress for a second. At the same time, Congress was passing a continuing budget to keep it going, keep government going. They were grafting on this COVID relief package. Columbus was doing a similar stunt, less known or publicized. You may recall that back in the middle of the year, kind of the height of the COVID concerns within government, state government particularly, they put on hold the capital bill, which is where all the state's construction projects are housed, and that's the legislative vehicle. Well, that was put on hold. It came out of hold in early December and was passed, I believe, on the 19th, if that was the Friday, a couple Fridays ago, 18th or 19th of December. And it included another bill that they grafted a $2.5 billion state capital bill. So I'm not sure proportionate we should be mad or celebrating, but the city of Galleon and our 10,000 or so residents were awarded $100,000 to remodel, not remodel is not the right word, renovate the town square. As I made a mention of a minute ago, we didn't really expect the state capital budget to happen this year, and so we had gone ahead and applied for freeze funds for a real similar project. When most of the activities that take place at up at the park, the third Fridays and other kind of community gatherings during the summer, as those were postponed or looked like they were going to be, a no-go in 2020, we decided not to utilize those freeze funds for that project. Just in like full disclosure, if that's the right word, we have in the city books in city funds money for that project. So we just really became aware late last week of our inclusion in the capital bill, and so we do have that $100,000. How we decide, I don't believe that the square needs more than that, certainly, but we do have now some freeze funds and some state capital bill funds. So that's I guess, as close to a Christmas present that the citizens of Galion got, and it's one of those things, as I said at the very beginning, that it had been so long. We applied late, it seems like the fall of 19, to get in on time to be included, and then, geez, way over a year later, we get notification that we were awarded. So we're very happy about that. Want to thank State Representative McLean, who was the person to whom we made application, for keeping that in his budget. And if you want to look around, it's easy to find on the internet. I think it's Senate Bill 310. If you Google that up, you can then get inside that bill a couple clicks away, and there's a county by county listing of all the projects that were awarded in this area. And so, and in this area, but also all 88 counties. So, if you find that kind of stuff, how can $100,000 of community projects turn into $2.5 billion? It's a bit of an education, good education, and you will see how much the state university system is dependent on, counts on getting that capital bill. So if you were asking, well, why did they resurrect that $2.5 billion when they're not certain going forward? Why would they issue that much more debt? Well, there's some powerful interests, shall we say, like the university system, and they have been planning on those dollars for a number of years. So good deal for Galion, good deal. If you look into it, you take the time to do that, you'll see that the Mansfield area campus, the Mansfield branch, I'm old school, so I call it the branch, and NC State or NC Community College, as usual, they got a number of projects. So if you know anyone over there that's in management, they'll probably tell you they didn't get as much as they wanted, but I tell you, they seem to have done all right. Any event, that is an update on the state capital bill. Real good news in terms of what can happen if you're persistent. I hear a lot from council members about making sure we're maximizing our pursuit of grants, and I think here's another example where we went ahead and took a chance, applied for something, and I guess I want to say rewarded, but Matt Eckelberry's here with me tonight as usual, and it'll be his job, our job, to make sure that gets spent properly. So I'm not sure we'll be as happy about it as we get in the middle of it, but it's a good thing. I'm going to say one or two more things real quickly about that. I believe that grant, along with the $40,000 roughly that we're going to receive, is kind of from the county through their block grant funds that they weren't able to expense, that we intend to use for some sidewalk repairs. I think those two awards, coupled with perhaps some money that may come into the depot early next year. We're still counting on that. I don't want to get sidetracked too much. But what I'm hoping is that might act as a catalyst, those funds for the uptown area, to begin to get people to think about ways to improve the trend line, if you will, on the uptown area. In no way to be offensive to anyone who's investing their money or taking risks uptown, but I think overall the number of key vacancies has gone up over the last couple of years, and it's certainly on my radar screen, and I'm hopeful that property owners and other people for whom uptown revitalization is critical, they'll realize that we need to act on that sometime in 2021 to begin the process. So what I do is I drive through Harding Way, coming over near the hospital where I live, come up Harding Way and keep pretty close eye on what's happening with various buildings, and honestly, I just don't like the trend line in the blocks that are populated, have few openings. There's one or two vacant storefronts or buildings that stick out as the cliched sore thumb. So with the city of Galion taking over the ownership and operation of the Central Hotel with this grant at the kind of catty corner across the square, I think it's time's right for the city to lead an effort to try to get more energy and more results in the uptown area. So anyways, I'll stop going on about that. Got a couple more things, and we'll see if we have some questions. If you follow city government through the council meetings, like the one we just completed, or committee meetings, this Zoom era has been real good for that kind of civic information, civic involvement, if you will. You've seen the last couple of meetings that the city is having to file appropriation actions with a handful or more of property owners in the 598 corridor. Nobody likes to take somebody else's property. I don't know anybody who does, and I've had I've had a couple jobs where that was pretty critical to getting the work done. So I'm not. You never get accustomed to it, but it's very necessary to move ahead at that point. So skeptics out there may be saying, they keep talking about widening 598. I'll believe it when I see it. You better start to believe it, because it really will begin in earnest over the next couple of months, and there'll be information coming out about the sale date, what our share of that project will be, and a lot of other information between now and in July of next year. Let me just hit on one more topic. Kind of windy today. It's like I've been sitting around wanting to talk to my Facebook friends, Matt. The project that we'll be selling next year has a significant amount, close to $400,000 of money in that budget to build temporary pavement. So let me be the first one to avoid a gotcha moment. And the reason that we did that, when the project was estimated and came back from our engineers and we had some initial meetings, they were proposing having traffic on 598 from Carter Drive out to Brant Road in only one direction. And this is, to our way of thinking at City Hall, my way of thinking, totally unacceptable. So engineer went back to the drawing board and has estimated that it will be around $400,000 to put down temporary pavement. That pavement, we can't get into the full detail of it tonight, but that pavement will allow a lane in each direction during construction. And I think that it's absolutely critical. And if we didn't do that, I would suspect that the businesses in that corridor could easily see a drop off in sales, maybe not of 400,000, but it would very much believe that would have effectively shut those businesses down. Now there's the retail part of that. Not sure what you classify that key service in our community that Dr. Huggins and his staff provide, but I think that would be pretty zany if you had an emergency need out at Doc Huggins' office and you had to go all the way out around Brant Road, up Middle Road, and back into town. So that kind of, it's more than inconvenience, it's safety. We've got some key employers out there in that mini industrial park, and so we want to make sure that employees, necessary ambulances and any kind of safety forces can get there and not have to make a large loop around to be able to get to their emergency. I think it's also practical. You want to go out to the DQ and get, what is that, a blizzard? Is that what they call those? Turned upside down. If you're a grandparent, that's $4 a pop, so be careful. Don't take them all at once. But I made that mistake. So any event, but that's an important business. All of that investment out there is important. So what you'll see early on is the temporary widening, and the naysayers will maybe argue that wasn't necessary. Well, I think I know that it will be necessary, and it's part of the project that ODOT will sell for us early next year. I can see there's probably a question or two. I want to add on just one more thing since I'm in the Portland Way corridor. For over a year, a firm has been working to make contact and execute a deal with the actual owners of the old Big End Shopping Center, or Pomida for those younger crowds, the Save-A-Lots location. And within the last couple of weeks, that company had kind of given me word that they're going to be closing on that property, and so I can't say a lot about it. It's not my project, but one of the biggest problems with that old shopping center property has been the difficulty that city officials or development officials have had in making contact with the people that you needed to talk to execute the sale. And so as this unfolds and becomes a little more public over the next several weeks, I really am super glad that we've got a company that is as interested in investing in galleon as this company is. So pretty excited about that. The way it's been for the longest time, especially since they tore down the old department store building, is it just sits there. No motivation, owned by an out-of-state kind of broker. I'm very excited with the widening of the road under new ownership, a willingness to partner with the city to get the necessary investment to make that a modern grocery store. Pretty excited about what can happen there. And so, with 598 actually going to happen, there's going to be a lot of activity there. My hope is that some of the activity will be the redevelopment of that shopping center. So, I'll take a breath there. I got one more 598 thing, then I'll take a breath. I'm not the greatest bully. You look at me, I don't present too imposing or bully of a figure. But the city, from my point of view, is going to turn up the communication with the owners of the old Pico property. I don't want to say turn up the heat, because I don't think that's necessary, but we're going to really the urgency of getting that old building torn down, getting a new one constructed, which has been the plan for ever since I became mayor. I want to make sure that gets done. A lot of things intended to happen earlier this year. COVID pushed back stuff in every direction, I think people know, but it doesn't need to stop, cancel, or postpone any longer a really good idea and a good need for the community. So the notion of getting state assistance to tear down the existing building, put up a new building, really going to try to encourage that getting done by the private developer using some state funding. So if I become a sort of a broken record on the redevelopment of the Pico property, that's because it really, I believe it's a super important step forward for Galleon. And it's timely because we're really going to have a transformed highway access out there. So excited about that. So again, I'll stop. I got a little list here. We got so many dang on things on here, but I think I'll stop there. You got any questions?
Yeah, I do have one question tonight. If there are any others, please submit them now. The one I have is from Tina. She said, hats off to the 2 city employees who spent their Christmas morning out plowing streets. Then she asked, why aren't all drivers required to come in and work when there's a storm coming? And why not have 2 shifts out plowing when needed?
I think I'm a stickler about that. I don't know that, I think they were out Christmas Eve salting. I think they did that really excellent job then on Christmas, coming out and getting some of a little bit more snow than we'd hoped for. I think Santa's reindeer, haha. But we got a little bit more But if Tina says we only had 2 on Christmas, I don't want to argue with her, but we'll gotta go back and identify that. I think it's a good piece of information, Matt, to have up there. Is if you will, the deployment. Now the second half of the question, why didn't everybody show up? Because we don't have mandatory overtime. It's rare in the public sector, and we just don't have that. The way it kind of works is you put people on standby, so you pay them whether it snows or not. But that's the short answer. We don't have mandatory overtime. I think it's pretty neat when people do show up, because all our coworkers have families, so they were making a sacrifice. I say this not cynically, but my years at ODOT, it was really funny that people who plow snow, and it's an important part of their income and their responsibility, because they take it pretty dang seriously. But it's funny how in December, prior to Christmas, the refusal rate on overtime is real low, and then after Christmas, after they paid for it, you run into both the fatigue of being called out over and over in some of the snowier counties, but it's also it's not quite as urgent. But I think we had a fleet. I know we had some salt trucks out. We had some pickup trucks plowing. So, Tina will try to go back, verify whether we had just 2, and recognize them. But yeah, I noticed that. I think Heisey Park, it's like we put up a closed sign there because it got a little ahead of us in Heisey Park. But the rest of the primarily traveled streets, I think between what we did and the heat of the tires, which makes a big difference, we didn't do too bad of a job. It's like the only question I have, so I'm going to over answer it. But we'll try to make sure that we post for what was Thursday and Friday. How many folks we had out. I don't know how much detail, how many hours of overtime. It's not maybe necessary, but the number of plow trucks, I think that's a valuable thing to know. Be curious about, and I graded. I think they did a really pretty good job. I was pleased when I saw that we were spreading salt on what would be Thursday night. So, all right, do we have anything else?
That is all I had.
Okay, I've got a couple more things, and then it seems like it's only about 9:30 or something like that. But I'll just go ahead and hit those. The part of why, if you're if you tuned into the council meeting before this live stream, you saw that we didn't allocate any money to the chamber. I tried to briefly explain why. I think the most important explanation is that when the new legislation when we were notified that the new congressional legislation was going to allow the carryover of CARES Act funds, we decided to, not knowing what early next year will bring, or in fact all next year, we decided to hold off on spending the last roughly 100 or 110,000. So that's, just to put it in perspective, we had about 600,000 total of CARES Act funds, came in 3 chunks. What we have held off on spending and reserving for next year is about 100,000, so 1/6 of that. So all you people quick with decimals and percentages know the answer to that, or baseball fans that know how to do that. So anyways, that's what that money is. If I had a guess, and there's already some discussion at I think one of the committee meetings, the notion of why the utility refund wasn't utilized more than it was. And I think it wasn't said at the meeting, but I think it's true. If you like government spending, I'm not sure how many people out there do. One of the things that the city will benefit from with the new money that is going to come out of Washington, and some of it will end up in local government again, like CARES dollars did, is that we've set up a process, a mechanism, if you'll excuse that term, so that I think we'll be more efficient in distributing the money. I don't see any reason to sort of change our focus, however, and we've tried to make our focus benefiting individual Galleonites to the maximum. So that's why we're investing in the mobile food pantries next year. That's why we reimburse the daycare centers, because these are people who went to work when there weren't very many daycare slots for that matter, but I won't digress. But those really benefited working families, and I think in an important way, made it so that those essential workers could go back to work, and they had a safe and quality place for their kids to be during those work hours. And then I think we're going to go back and try to tweak, perfect, if you'll accept that term, our utility rebate, and try to make it clear that it could be utilized for people, not just people who directly lost a job or had a decreased income. And so if council decides to go that direction next year, then I think we'll know how to distribute that more efficiently. Remains to be seen whether or not we will be able to reimburse the sick leave of COVID patients. And there was what's that called, acronym that came up with that. That was not renewed in this new legislation, so we'll kind of see how that goes, whether or not, because we have probably as many now folks who are off either self-quarantine because of a family member who has tested positive, or who are off sick themselves. So our impact on the city workers is, I think, far from over as we try to wrestle this whole pandemic and vaccination and all those things to the ground and get an upper hand on that. So likely utility rebates, and if there's another program of similar assistance like CARES Act that comes to local governments, I can see no better philosophy to follow than try to have whatever aid we distribute available to the maximum number of individual residents. So anyways, that's what I got. You guys can go have an extra piece of fudge if you have it at your house, if you know why Kara Alt abstained. I mean, what in the world's up with this person? First meeting, she's abstaining. There's got to be something wrong here. So I think it's pretty obvious if you followed her previous service to the city. She had, I think, voted on all those things at the Board of Health. So that was the abstention. So if you got that right at home, if there's anybody watching at home at this point, but if you did, that's why she did that. And I guess what it showed me, is kind of been at this a while, is that's a pretty astute person that knows the responsibilities, what she can and what she shouldn't vote for. I think that's sort of a big thumbs up to her, and welcome aboard. I think Gail and I ask ourselves why we're doing this every day, but I want to thank Gail Baldinger again for showing the direction and allowing his staff to get really a major accomplishment, getting that budget done. Complete budget for next year, a few tweaks, but really a job well done. And I think as everybody signed off, I'll sign off by saying Happy New Year. I hope things are better in your lives. And the city of Galion, I think we have hung together pretty well. And so, we don't know what the future will bring, but looks like we're getting through 2020. All on the same team, and no reason not to keep that going on into next year. So, no questions?
Nope.
I think we're losing our audience, Matt, so we'll have to, I think I'll stand on my head or wear clown makeup. Maybe some of the cynics will say, you haven't been wearing clown makeup. But in any case, I really appreciate people's involvement, and I encourage you to stay tuned. We'll try to be back next week. I don't see any reason why not. So, good Lord willing, and if there's not a foot of snow, we'll talk to you next Monday night. Good night, Galleon.